This is Leslie Strose, and I'm an artist. Sorry, I'm an artist and an illustrator, and I am going to be painting this Hobbit house today. So I thought I'd take a little bit of time just to talk you through the supplies that I'm going to use, since up to date all of the live streams have been just drawing. So this is the first time that we'll be painting. And I'm just trying to load. Sorry, I need 1 minute just to load up the comments on my other screen. So I've got my watercolor set here of Winsor & Newton watercolors. Let me move my things from the photo out of the way so that we have more room to paint. And yeah, this is where it would come in handy to have somebody, to have a helper. All right, so I'm doing my comments on the other side today, so hopefully that'll work. I have my water off screen, and for supplies today, I have my watercolor tin. It's Winsor & Newton professional watercolors, but you don't need to use professional watercolors to do this. I just am going to use them. If you're a beginner and you're just checking in today for the first time, the watercolors that I'm all over the place. The watercolors that I would recommend are the Cotman Winsor & Newton set. And they're pretty affordable, whether you're in the UK or the EU or the US. I'm not sure how they are in other areas of the world, but my other set is up in my little tiny house up in our back garden. But this is an unopened set, and the thing that I like about this, and I have a video about it that you can see on my page, is that it gives you a cool and a warm of each of the primary colors, and then it gives you a couple greens, and then it gives you 3 earth tones. So it gives you yellow, a yellow ochre, burnt sienna, and burnt umber, and then it gives you a white, which I don't really recommend using, but you can take that out and put something else there if you'd like. It also comes with a brush. So my set is not too dissimilar from that. And I think one of the things with watercolor that can become tricky for people is knowing what color to mix, especially when you're doing a paint along with this, like this. So I'm going to be using just mostly one brush for most of this. And I'm using number 4 Rosemary & Co. I think I have the wrong brush. I want to use, I have the number 4 and the number 8. I'm missing my number 6, which is my favorite one, but there's my number 6. All right, so they're pointed round brushes. I think I'll probably vacillate between these two. And then for some of these details, I may end up using just a really small brush, but we'll see. I have 2 water jars on the side I can show you. I use really big jars that just, I don't know, they held pickles or something. And I have one for cleaning my brush with the dirty water, and then I have one for rinsing it in the clean water. And that way I'm able to get a lot of use out of that. But I only have so much room here, and you don't need to see me cleaning my brush, but I figured you're probably more interested in seeing how I mix paint. And I'll give a quick run through the colors that I have set up here. And I don't worry if you're painting along today and you want to paint and don't have all these colors. You don't need them. And even if you don't have you know, some of these, all you really need ever is like a yellow. It helps to have 2 yellows, a cool and a warm yellow. I've put it in a Winsor lemon. Here's my color sheet. I've written them down in order so that you can see them if you want to take a screenshot or write them down on your own. But I have Cad Yellow Pale here, which I like a lot. The cadmium colors, if you've watched any of my videos, especially on TikTok, but all of the cadmium colors and the cobalt colors, they are toxic. Now, they're not going to be dangerous if you're not sanding them and inhaling them, or if you're not drinking the water, but you do need to be careful about water disposal for that. And you don't need the cadmiums. You can use a cadmium yellow hue. Hi, SL. Hi, Archie Dream. Hello. So you can have replacements for these. So almost every company makes a hue, HUE, and that means that that's a replacement color. So like a cadmium yellow hue, it's going to give you kind of the same color, but without the toxins. But I have toxins here, and maybe next live stream, if anybody's interested, I can use colors that aren't toxic. But so I have cad yellow pale, cad yellow deep, which is very much like an orangey color, but it is classified as a cad yellow. I have yellow ochre and raw sienna, which are pretty similar, but I'm experimenting personally with the differences. Yellow ochre is a bit more opaque, and raw sienna is more transparent. So although they're both earthy, they will operate differently in mixes. Then I have cadmium red, permanent alizarin crimson, neutral tint, which I doubt I'm going to use today, indigo, which I'm probably not going to use. Oh, I might use indigo. We'll see. Cerulean, Prussian blue, cobalt blue, ultramarine, burnt sienna, and Payne's gray. Now, if you're new to watercolor or on a budget, SL, get a mask. You don't need a mask actually for using these colors unless you're going to be releasing them into the air. So if you mix your own paint, then you need to worry because you're dealing with the loose pigments, but they are contained during the manufacturing process when they, make paint with a binder. So you don't need to worry about them unless it comes to disposal or breathing in like the actual pigment. There aren't any fumes, so you don't need to worry about that. But yeah, if you're home, I would recommend having a cool yellow, like this is a Windsor lemon, and a warm yellow. And the cad yellow pale, it's a warmer yellow. So that's why I don't normally have this in here. I'm sort of experimenting with not having one, but I think I'm gonna want it. And then you want to have a cool and a warm red. So I have my cadmium red and my permanent alizarin crimson. Replacements for these, those are fine. Like a pyrrole red would be good. And then for my blues, I definitely want my ultramarine and burnt sienna. Burnt sienna is my earth red color, and I use those in my dark mixes almost all the time. So these are two colors that I could never live without. And then I probably will be using some cerulean, and I might play around with mixing some cerulean with, I don't know, a touch of cobalt or indigo or Prussian. We'll see. We'll play around with that. There's some nice blues in the door area. Okay, so I'll just set this up here for now. Well, you can't see it if I do that. I'm taking it away. So if you have any questions, let me know. And this one is just for you. I have my iPad up on a bigger screen in front of me. So how much, hello Taba, how are you? I'm not sure how much of an explanation you want. So I think what I'm going to do for today's is just tell you how I'm doing it and tell you what I'm doing. And then if you want to paint along, you can do that. Or if you want to paint something completely different and just keep me as company, you can do that. You can do whatever you want. You're in the comfort of your own home. Okay, so I'm going to start with the sky. So I'm wetting my brush, and then I'm going to do a wet on wet technique for that. Actually, I'm also going to give a spritz to my colors just to help the pigment sink in. So I'm doing a wet on wet technique, which means I'm wetting the sky first. And I don't mind if it bleeds into this tree a little bit, because this tree is going to have a couple different layers. So I might just go all the way across because there are some sky holes peeking through. And then I'm going to use some ultramarine and a bit of cobalt blue. And it's a really pale blue. So I actually want to use some cerulean. Now, when I use watercolors, or I'm sorry, oil paints, I often will use phthalo blue instead of cerulean, but I find phthalo to be a little bit tricky for a watercolor. Hold on, I'm gonna get a scrap piece of paper. I always recommend having a scrap so that you can test your colors before you put them down. So I like that color. By the way, this is not the original. This is a copy of the original. So I had them made, and I will be selling those in my shop. I'll have those up within the week. So I think I want just a tiny bit more water. It's a little bit too pigmented, which means it's too colorful. So, all right, it's that simple. And I'll leave that to dry. I didn't tape this down. I probably should have. Do I want to? Yeah, but I can't tape that. But what I will do is I'm going to tape the other corners for now. And I can come back when that's dry and tape that down as well. And I'm just going to use some washi tape for that. Actually, I'm changing my mind. I'm going to do something else, which is, this is a little tip. I'm going to take just some clean water, and I'm going to paint the back of this. Sorry, there's a long hair on here that keeps getting in the way. Well, I'm just gonna lay it down. I should have done this first, but the day got away from me, so I'm not as prepped as I had hoped to be. So my apologies. All right, so if I paint the back side, especially when it's just a small watercolor like this, and then I can just, I need a little bit more water. It will stick to the board fairly well. Normally, in a normal universe. But I'm live, so things are bound to go wrong, aren't they? All right. I would normally saturate the whole sheet to do this, which it's not. This paper is not wanting to cooperate, and I don't want to saturate it because I don't have time to let it dry. But normally if I saturate the whole sheet and then lay it down, that will work quite well. But we're going to give it a little bit of help with the tape. I don't have much of a border here to go by, so I just want to tape down a little bit. But yeah, that trick works if you have, if you wet the whole paper, both sides, and then stick it down on a board. It works quite well. I don't like taping it down at all because this drawing does go out to the sides quite a bit. And there is a bit of a border there. I will have more of a little bit more of a border in the ones that I'm selling in the shop. And you know what I'm going to do is I'm going to peel that back a little. All right, so if you're just getting started with me. All right, now for this green, I don't usually like to use, I have an olive green here, because I don't think that teaches people, and I'm just so used to not using a green now, but I've been using my tiny palette, which is completely different. So it's taking me a phthalo blue in my watercolor set. So I think I'm going to take the same blue mix, drop in a little more blue. There's a lot of water in here. and just drop in a bit of this cad pale yellow until we get and I want a bit more yellow because I want it to be a more pale yellow. With watercolor, you know, you start, I'm going to take a dash of the lemon. Do I like that? No, I need it a bit cooler. So I'm probably going to gosh, I haven't used this set in a long time. There, I'll use this one later, but I want for my base coat, I want it to be more almost of a pale yellow, and I'm just gonna put that down on the dry paper. And then I'll be going over and layering greens on top of that, but I'm gonna let that set and let that dry. And then I see some of those pale colors down here. So I'm just going to lay those down. And then again, we'll be layering those later. I've been using my tiny palette for my tiny paintings, and I've just, it's become like a glove, you know? I love the colors. I can predict them all the time. Hi, Christina, how are you? And I will be doing another layer on this little one. And I'm going to keep this light because remember, I want that to pop. And I probably will go in with some masking fluid again once this is dry. Just those bits that are extending out to protect them for when I do the darker colors around. So I'm going to switch now. I'm not used to painting and talking. I'm used to drawing and talking all the time. I'm going to put in these trees in the back, and I want those to be really pale. So I'm taking my ultramarine and I'm knocking it back with a little bit of burnt sienna. So that gets me there. And then I want just a touch of yellow. So I'm going to use just a bit of my yellow ochre. And just put those in the background. Now with watercolor, in case you don't know, they dry lighter than they are when you first put them down, which can be really frustrating because oftentimes you'll get the perfect color and then it dries and it doesn't look perfect anymore. And there's this one little tree that has more yellow in it. I don't want to do a whole lot to the background because it's not the star. And I might just play with some of this olive green and just drop a little bit just to give a suggestion of where some of the sunlight is hitting it. And I'll leave that for now. And so what are you all doing? Are you painting the same thing? Are you painting something else? Are you just along to watch? I'd love to know. So I'm gonna go in, do I want to? Yes. I wanna just put a light. I've taken my yellow mix, I've added a bit, I'm cheating. I've added a bit of the olive green to it just to give me some of the base coat, although most of these are cooler. So I'm gonna drop a bit of ultramarine into there. That's a bit better. Dea says, would you please tell us later which color do you have in your watercolor? Thank you. Watching for inspiration, Christina says, while I figure out what to paint. Yeah, that's okay. Inspiration's good. Yes, Dea, the colors that I have are right here. I'm gonna try to put them in screen. I've written them down there in the order. And if you want to go back later, when this is over and watch the replay, I did go through all the colors in the beginning so you can see what they are. But I am not using all of these colors today. I usually use a much more limited palette, but I had them out. So I recommend a cool and a warm of each of the yellows. I'm using for my cool Winsor Lemon, and then Cad Yellow Pale for my warmer yellow. And then I have a cool and a warm blue. So for my warm blue, I have ultramarine. And then for my cooler blue, I have cerulean. And then I have a couple other blues that I don't play around with that much. So I'm hesitant to get too into them right now. I'm kind of just going to stick with what I know. So, so the ones that I'm sticking with most today are these two yellows. And if you don't have these, you don't need them. You just need a cooler yellow and a warmer yellow. Yellow ochre I use always. And then I have a warm red and a cool red. So I have permanent alizarin for my cool and cadmium red for my warm. And then my cool blue is ultramarine, and my warmer blue is cerulean, although that's debatable. You can get into whole art debates about which one's cool and which one's warm. But I'm talking about the way they mix. So when I'm mixing and I want to cool a color down, ultramarine is what I'll do. And then I have burnt sienna, which I will use. And I may get into the Payne's Gray. And I have been stealing a bit of this olive green because I kind of like it. And but that's just a convenience color. You can mix that color, you know, with yellow and blue, and maybe a dash of red on your own. I want to put in the base color now, where there are all these beautiful reds. So again, I have two water containers, huge ones off screen. One for cleaning the water and then one for rinsing it. And then I don't really need, it keeps my brush really clean. So I want some burnt sienna. And I think I want just a touch of the Cad Red. The Cad Red is kind of, can overpower quickly. And I think that's a good base coat, to be honest. Remember, you want your base coat to be really light. And I'm not going to have enough to get it everywhere I want, but that's okay. I'll just mix up some more. Yeah, so the nice thing about having made these into postcards is that I can just paint as many times as I want with them. Dea, you're watching while ironing your clothes. That's good. Good for you. You're being productive. Okay, so I need to mix up a bit more. So just a touch of the blue for some of these areas that are a bit more gray. And actually, I think I do want just a touch of that Cad Red. It just really keeps it that sort of reddish color that all of this wood is. Now my brush is a bit too wet, so if that happens, just dry it off and then you can lift those colors. I want that to be redder, but I'll worry about that later. So for all of these grays and these reddish grays and these reddish blues, it's a lot of the ultramarine, the burnt sienna, and then a dash of another red if I need it. Yeah, I like that color better, so I'm going to go over this. This was a bit too brown. So I'm going to, my brush, it's a bit wet. I'm going with a drier brush. I'm going to pick some of that up. And then I want them to be consistent, so. And I just accidentally painted over my cheese. So we'll lift that out. And that's going to be yellow. Ellison, hi to Brazil. How are you? Thanks for stopping by. Dea says, oh, it's nice to have extra paper to swatch the color before applying it. Yeah, I always do that, even when I'm painting outside. Because it can be deceiving when you see it on the palette. And I'm taking this color basically, and well, I don't want to alter it too much yet because I want to get this strip. And actually, this vine here that's green, I'm going to use my masking fluid pen on that. So people ask about this a lot, but it's the Molotow masking fluid pen. You don't have to use a pen. You have to shake it, and then you have to start it on another sheet of paper. That's not important. Just to make sure that it's flowing correctly. I know from having used this a lot, that is a little bit too thin. So I'm going to keep shaking it. You can see it's a little bit too runny. Okay, let's see. Yeah, that's better. You probably can't see it on camera, but it's a bit brighter and thicker. So this vine here I really like, and I drew it in. So I want to leave some area there for when I paint it in. It bled a little bit. Ugh. It bled a little bit into the paint, which might cause us problems later, but we'll find out. Remember, the rule is make your mistakes work for you. So, and nothing is that important. If you make a mistake, don't lose sleep over it. I'm just picking a little bit up with a cotton bud here before it dries. And I need to leave this area of the paper alone for that to dry. And this is almost dry enough. I'm trying to spare you all getting a hairdryer out. I don't really like using hair dryers anyhow. And this ridge, that's like a yellow. I'm going to use a bit cad yellow pale. And a dash of, I don't know, I think a dash of burnt sienna, just a little, it's not quite super yellow, but it's bright. I like that. I'm going to run that along this little ridge here, and then there's like some intricate guttering system here that keeps the water from falling on the house. So I'm gonna leave that, and I probably won't put anything else there again at all. And now I want to mix up a green and go in with the second green. I don't, this is the thing with watercolor. I'm used to doing it on my own, and I can wait, but because it's a live stream, you know, I have to think about drying time. I don't want to go there yet because this is drying. I can't go here because this is drying. I'm waiting for this to dry a little bit more before I put some masking fluid on those pieces so that I can get into this area without worrying about it. But what I can do is I can put in this post, this here in these posts. Dea says, you were going to ask about masking fluid. Is it necessary to have it for a beginner or not? No, it's not necessary. It's just a cheat. It's helpful. There are other things that you can do. If you want to mask an area, you can use just like a piece of wax, like a wax candle, like a birthday candle. Anything that's going to make the water resist it. You can use a white colored pencil. And, or you can just paint around it. Yeah, see, this is where I think the raw sienna, oh, I like that better. Can you see the difference? So here I'm sorry, I can't stop giving lessons. It's the teacher in me. So here I've mixed raw sienna and burnt sienna, and it's giving me a really transparent, you know, thinner color. And then over here, I've mixed burnt sienna and yellow ochre, which is more opaque. And you can see, they're not an accurate comparison because I've used, actually I like this, but I've used more pigment for that one. But this is going to come across as it's just got more coverage. But I like them both. So sort of what I do is if I have a color that I like, I'll start dropping it into other areas where I see it. But I do want to mix some more of that ochre and burnt sienna. Dea says, sometimes it's hard for me to control how much water is on my brush. Yeah, that's the hardest part. Okay, so this is, sorry to interrupt myself, but this is more similar. Oh, it's making a liar out of me. It's coming off very transparent. Maybe I don't want the raw sienna in my palette. I don't know. It's a newer color I'm experimenting with. And it's not a newer color. It's newer to me color. I mean, Dea, to answer your question, I mean, masking fluid is really handy. I'm not gonna lie. But there are artists who never would touch it. You know, they just don't believe in it. They're purists, and they would just paint tiny and they'd paint around things. But you were talking about water control. That comes a little bit with practice. And that's where having a piece of swatch paper really comes in handy too, because you can gauge your water better. So wait, I lost my train of thought. I'm thinking I want these are a beigey color. So I'm gonna mix that, but I want it lighter. So I'm gonna add a bit more water. I think that's gonna get me there with a touch of ochre. It's a bit greeny. I don't like that it's greeny. That's good. And if my water, if the paint goes on too wet, you can always just dab it on a piece of, you know, towel. Like that is going on a little bit wetter than I want, so I just dabbed off some of the extra water. And I'm leaving where that sunlight is catching the tip. And I just wanted to take this color and go in and put in where some of these fence posts are so that I don't forget about them. And again, I'm looking at what I'm painting, this source image, as much as my painting. That's the trick. All right, so that is a pretty good first coat on those. That's still, Now if I see this color anywhere, I see it a bit in there, and there. And let's go in. Yes, you want to buy the masking fluid too, Dea says. Yeah, I mean, it's really handy to have, especially if you're working tiny. If you're working on a larger painting, it's not as essential. All right, so I want to put in, I want this, I'd rather have this brush. Some of these. No, I said I want that brush, but it's not ready. This brush wants it. Don't have enough. Okay, so you can see that is a very bright red. Brighter than anything you can see. It's, I don't really want that too much yet in these areas, but I do see some of this color like in here. Just a touch. That is too wet. And I'm experimenting with this paper too. It's called Bachford. This whole panel is far, far, far too wet. And then if I want to make it a little bit less bright, I can just add a dash of the ultramarine. And then that is quite pigmented, so I'm going to make another patch with more water for a lighter area. And then my brush is very wet, so I'll rinse it and I'll tap it off so that it's just a bit damp. Yeah, painting and talking is definitely more challenging. And then I want this color to come over here as well. Dea says you have too many questions. Let me see. Is it okay to use water brush pen for watercolor? Yes, absolutely, 100%. I only have 3 watercolor brushes and they are all water brush pens. I find it easier to bring it everywhere. Yes, I use water brush pens when I'm doing my tiny paintings. They're very, very easy. And I think they do make it in many ways easier to kind of learn water control as well, depending on which ones you have. So I'm just coming over in some areas and just dropping in some of the reds where I see it. Just want to pop the red there, and then this orangey red against the blue should make that blue pop. And I think this bit, it's still a bit damp because I was kind of silly and wet the back, and I should have, which is not a problem. I mean, that's how I often do it when I'm painting small like this, so that I don't have to tape it. But It just means it didn't have time to dry. I should have done it, you know, an hour before the live stream started. So, and then this area I want to, just any of these areas that are creeping in to this part of the background, I want to mask those. Like that. And I think even like this bit, those tips, just keep those protected. And I'm trying to see if there's any other areas that I need to mask. I don't think so. I think that's good. So we'll let that dry. This is getting dry enough. I'll go in now with my second layer of green. I want to experiment a bit with some Prussian blue, because that's very similar to phthalo. And try a bit of the Windsor lemon. I like that. That's nice for some of the cooler greens. So I can kind of drop that into some of these vines for this cooler bit that's in the shadow. All right, yeah, my tiny palette has very different colors, and I've become used to them, and I've even been thinking that I might like to replicate those same colors in here. And I do have a phthalo green. Now this is bleeding down into the wood a little bit, and I'm okay with that. So I'm just going to leave that. All right, it's getting a bit cool. I might take just a little bit of that red just to make it look a bit more realistic. That is pretty good. Yeah, let's go with that. I'm painting around that dip. And these vines. I think that is pretty good. And I'm going to steal back some of this tape. All right, I'm going to move this out of the way, I think. Awesomely Tracy, hello, I just joined and am new to watercolor. What is masking? Dea, you said the one that you use is from Pentel. You masking, does Pentel make a masking fluid pen, or is it just the masking fluid? Because I'd be curious to try there if they have a pen. Masking fluid, Tracy, is it doesn't normally come in a pen. The pen is a convenience thing. It comes in a bottle normally, and then you would paint it on areas that you want to resist the paint. So I put some on these areas here so that I can kind of just paint over it, and then I can remove it later with an eraser or with a bit of rubber. I think, yeah, I normally use this when I'm home, and then when I'm out painting in like plein air, I'll just use an eraser to do that. All right, so I'm going to add a little, this color with a bit more red is going to get me the color of those legs. Actually, they're a bit more red than that. And then the darker one can go back here because it's more in shadow. And I'll leave that, and that again, that will dry lighter than it looks right now. And then this color, will give me some of these colors of these. Sorry, I'm going to move that just for a second. I'll bring it back. Just some of these bricks. And normally I don't worry about individual bricks, but there are only a few in this, so they're kind of more important. And I like the fact that you can see, you know, the white in between them here. So I'm just going to paint those. And again, I'm just painting these with the tip. I'm not worried about things being perfect. I mean, I could use a smaller brush if I was. I'm going to try to, I want to go all the way to the edge with this because the drawing goes all the way to the edge. So, all right, now let that dry a bit. And then I'm thinking, like, I have this color now. Do I have it anywhere else in the drawing? And I think, you know, if I take a little bit of water, there are some just pops of it in some of these vines. Spread the love. And that's going to add more color harmony when, you know, the colors move around the whole page. Okay, I think I'm probably not going to do any more here and here. I could, but I want it to be sort of simple. And I want, remember, if you were here for the drawing part, this is the star of the show. And so this is where I want to focus all of my attention. So I'm going to go back, and I liked the cool blue that I got from this Prussian and the lemon yellow. And if you don't have a Prussian blue, a phthalo blue would do this. You can, and then I'm adding a bit of the red from here, just to make it less fake looking. You know, that's the problem with phthalos. And see, that is not a color that you see anywhere in this composition, and it's not normally a color you'd see in nature except very sparingly. So when you have a color like that, first of all, I want it to be a bit more green, but you go to the opposite color, which is going to be an orange. So I've got this orange here, and that's going to make it look more realistic. So can you see now it went from looking like neon to looking more like a proper color. So I like that. It's a bit warmer than I was going for, but that's okay because I have some areas here where I want to drop in some warm lines. And I don't really like the yellow that I put down here. If I could go back, I'd redo that, but I'm wondering if I can pick up some of that. It is a very dark yellow. So I think what I'm going to do is see if I can just lift some of it. So I'm getting a brush that's a scrubby brush, like that. It's a firmer bristle and it's harder. And if I get it wet, damp wet, depending on the paper, I can lift some of that. Can you see how I'm able to scrub some of that off? And that's better. It's just too yellow. I'll leave some of them because there is a lot of dark in there. And I'll probably leave that one just because it makes it look different. I'm trying to start my music. It stopped. Yeah, so the nice thing about if you're using a decent paper is you can lift colors with watercolor with a clean damp brush to a degree. And this is going to be wet now, so I'm going to leave it for a while. But already I think that paler color is going to blend nicer with the colors that I put on top of it. All right, I'll leave that. And again, this is all incidental. I'm losing a lot of my ink there. And again, I'm practicing with this paper. It doesn't seem to lift the ink, which means that that was opaque and covered it, which kind of stinks. But we'll go in, we'll fix it later. All right, so I've got this is a somewhat cool color, and so it's a nice base coat for these. Do I want to? I think that one's okay. That is drier, so I'm going to just put that there so that it doesn't move all over the place. I don't want to have a border on some sides and not others. That is not going to look good. Josh, I'm not sure if I'm saying that right. What's the best way to draw houses with good proportions and perspective? Wow, that's a loaded question. What's the best way to draw them? I don't know if you've seen any of my live streams where I drew. I have 8 from October where I was drawing all of the houses for Inktober, but I gave a lot of tips for that there. And I also have a lot of videos that I put up last month that I think will help answer that question. But it's a combination of looking at the bigger shapes first, and then going in and adding more detail later. Okay. Just dropping in some of the darks. This masking fluid now is dry, so I can paint around it. And then we can remove that later. And I want to get in and put some of these darks in. Those are going to be, we might as well, oh, there's, I don't know, what is that? I'm trying to see in the drawing. It's part of a fence post, but it doesn't go up that high. And maybe it goes up to about here. So part of that is going to be dark. Part of that will be, let's just make it all foliage. All right, so let's go in with some burnt sienna and ultramarine. And Dea, you were asking about water control. I know by looking at this that it's going to be kind of thinner than I want it. So you can see it's a bit transparent, and I want to add a little bit more pigment, so I'm just keeping doing the same thing until it gets a bit more pigmented, so that I don't have to do too many passes. And this is a bit, I want it a bit cooler because this is all in shadow. And now my brush is pretty wet as well. Yeah. In fact, because this area is smaller, I'm going to go to my size 4. And this is damp, so this will put down the pigment pretty much. It's thirsty. It's going to soak. So you can see it's soaking up a lot of that. I just want to do my first layer of all these dark pigments because it'll take more than one. And I don't need too much. I mean, there's really not a lot to see here. It's just all in shadow. But it's important to cover it. Beautiful rosemary brushes, Dea says, yes, yes they are. I love them. And you don't need many. Like honestly, this a 4 and a 6 and an 8 maybe rounds are good. I'm just gonna drop in some darks on top of that. I want to make sure that I do darks around where I have this masking fluid because that will make that really pop when I lift it. And this, yeah, this is just darker. Okay. And I want to mix some more of the kind of the grayish brown. So again, we'll go up here. That's pretty good actually. Sorry, I've gone quiet. Requires a lot of thinking to paint and mix colors. And all right, so there's a touch of like a green, like a cool green, not that green, on this one. So I want to get in with some of this color. Just that one right there, and this one too. It's a bit of moss or something on it. And I'm going to just put some of that color in with the black here and there, just to give it a bit more depth. If I go in with just a solid color, it's going to read as more flat. I would like to try their watercolor and oil brushes. Rosemary, yeah. I asked for those for Christmas a few years ago, and well, several years ago, maybe like 4 years ago. They're just the best. All right, so I'm just kind of moving around. I think it's time to maybe go in with the first blue. And I'm not sure how I want to mix it, to be honest, because that is such a vibrant color. If I go in with cerulean, that might be the way to go, actually. Cerulean with it, maybe just, let's look at it. Let's do that for the base coat. I don't normally like to use just one pure color, but this is going to be the base coat, and then we'll add stuff to it later. And this is really why I've kept cerulean in my palette, because when you want to mix a color that's more opaque, it's really hard to replicate that with phthalo, I find. We've got this little bit here. Drop a bit in there. It's not wet enough. It's not moving. All right, now I'll go back. Aha. Yeah, I'm removing the tape. This is the problem with it. It's finally suctioned itself to the board. So, but I have this issue. You can see what I've done. So I want to take this Windsor Lemon. I'm remembering everything about why it wasn't on my palette. It's more opaque. It doesn't have that brightness. What I want a different lemon. Let me see if I've got a different lemon. Amazing, thank you. Dea, cerulean color is so pretty, but in oil paint they are a bit pricey. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, all of these colors are a bit pricey in oils. I'm looking for a better yellow. I'm always, this is kind of the story of my life, looking for a better yellow. Although I might just get out my tiny palette. And I love that lemon, that is this set, this Daniel Smith set, and that's a Hansa Yellow Light. And this is, I do like their, so I'm gonna just, I'm gonna go into the tiny palette here. And I've gotta clean it because I didn't really clean these colors out after my last painting session. Yeah, the Hansa Yellow Light, I think it's one that I think I should get with Winsor & Newton. I probably have it, to be honest. But it's a bit brighter, and it's a bit more transparent than this Windsor Lemon, which I'm finding is really heavy in the mixes. So if I just take some of that, and then a bit of phthalo, and maybe just a touch of alizarin. And a bit more yellow. I'm going to be fighting this line here. I'm kind of stuck with putting some of this in to blend that out. Do you see? From where I had that tape. But that's all right. Is a Go Draw palette? Yes, this is a Go Draw palette. It's where is it? It's right there. And this is made by a woman named Julia who lives in Russia. And there are lots of other ones that you can get that are kind of similar, but they aren't hers. And I've recently just learned that she came up with a design, so I'm a bit reticent to buy, you know, her design from other people. I feel like that doesn't do her favors, but she has had trouble shipping since February. So, all right, where do I want to go? This is too yellow. I want it to be a bit more red. So let's take this one, add a bit of ultramarine. Too much, so let's take some of this red. Yeah, it's getting way too dark. It's a bit purpley. It's nice. I see that color in here a little bit in this area. And where else do I see it? I see it here. So often if you mix a color and it's not what you wanted, a lot of times you'll find that color elsewhere in the composition. So just, take a second and look around and think, where can I put that? I've been fighting this board the entire time. It's not drying, and because of that, the paint, none of it's, you can see the way it lays down elsewhere, but it just, nothing is laying down on it nicely. So I'm not able to layer it the way I am these other areas. So I think I need to just completely leave it alone for a while. I need a bit more burnt sienna and maybe just a touch of cadmium red. And the red on this light red is a pyrrole red, I think. I could be completely wrong. It's probably not. Let me look. What is it? No, it's pyrrole scarlet. So close. And that works as a nice replacement for the cadmium red. And it's less expensive too, which is nice. All right, we've got a bit of, see this golden color that we used? This was the color we used along, but I see some of that in this lantern as well. And now I want to, is this dry? It's still damp. I thought my brush was dry. I'm trying to see, like, this, I've got a lot of wetness. So normally I'd go make a cup of tea and come back, but let's see what else I can do. I can add some of these darks in here. So let's go in with some ultramarine and some burnt sienna. Get a nice inky color. And let's put in a dash of Payne's Gray just to get it really, really dark. But I do want it to be, it's not quite that dark. There's more warmth in it, so I'm going to do a bit of burnt umber too. Warm it up a bit. I want a warm, dark color. So that is going to be warmer and darker. And now I'm going to go in some of these areas and just replicate this area between the vines in the really dark area, the really dark parts. Remember, I've lost some of my ink work here somehow. So I've gone quiet. I always feel a bit self-conscious when I get too quiet. And I'm on a live stream. But normally painting for me is very solitary, quiet endeavor. Yeah, so I'm just, you know, where there are these, there's lots of little haphazard shadows within here. I don't know if I like this paper for the postcards that I'm going to sell because of the way it sort of covered the ink, but that might have been user error on my part, so I'll play around with some of the other ones. I'm looking at another company that was recommended by another friend, artist friend of mine. Liv Paints Buildings. She's on TikTok and probably on Instagram too. And they have a nice cotton paper to make postcards with, so I'm going to give them a go, order some from them, and see if I like that quality better before I put them in my shop officially. All right, so it's okay to be less defined in this area, because remember, this is the area that I want the viewer's eye to go to. So this is all just framing, just in the same way that this, you know, I'm leaving that more simple. I do need to up the value here. You can see that's that darker ridge where the grass is and the soil turns into shadow. But I haven't done that yet. It's always a process with watercolor. Let's just take all these and mix them together and see what we get. And then we'll clean the palette. So we're gonna get some nice, oh, I like that. This is a nice warm green. So let's put that in some of those, like this is green. My brush is too wet. Just tap it off a bit. Just a few of these leaves that are really catching the warmth of the sunlight. Okay, what color do we have now? All right, we have a bit of like an army green. Where do we see that? Drop some of that in here. Okay. I think I just want to be done with this patch now, so. And I think it's time to do, this is pretty dry. I think this is dry enough, and that's dry enough. So we can work on adding some of the shadows now and some of the brighter colors. I mean, everything's covered. Everything's got its preliminary color, you know? So there's no, except for these tiny pieces of fruit, but that's okay, because we can do this after the fact. Knight says, yeah, that's Go Dry. I followed you, Leslie, because of Go Dry. Yeah, I love this. I love it. It's my absolute favorite. And it just makes it so nice to paint outside. All right, so for this, what do I want to take? I think I'm going to take some of that Prussian, mix that in. And, oh wait, we didn't like that yellow, remember? We liked the, you know what, I have it in, I have it in this little tin and it's bigger. I think, unless this is my Sennelier tin. Yeah, no, that's it. So we can just take it out of there. Instead of raiding the tiny palette. So again, it gives us that neon, which we don't want, but we can darken that. And I want to use a combination of burnt sienna, which might make it too warm. And let's try a touch of the alizarin, which is a bit cooler. I think that is going to get me there better. Yes. So I just added a bit more ultramarine to the mix. Now my brush, I just tapped it off on so that it's wet, but it's not very wet. It's just damp because I have a lot of water in this mix. And I'm just going to drop it in here. And I'll probably need to do this more than once because this shadow is quite dark. But it's an organic shape. It's not straight across, so I'm just playing around with it. And you know, I see some of that up in here too. And a little bit here. And I know I said I was done with this area, but I think I like that. And again, that is going to dry later. And so we can take some of this color where we see the cooler greens, like cooler shadows. And so I'm just dropping some of that down here. Okay. So let's go with the door again. So we had cerulean and cobalt that we used for the door. And let's try that. I mean, the door is really the star of the show, so we want to make sure that we get a color that we're happy with. And there is a lot of texture in this door, so it's not just solid. Although it looks like it's solid, it isn't. I'm painting right over the doorknob because I can darken that up later. And then we've got this little strip over here. And I'm just putting a few specks of it over here. Again, spreading the love, creating more color harmony, and dropping some of that into some of these greens. Don't want that. Keep going for that. I'm going to take it out of there. The Windsor Lemon's been fired, guys. So we're into the Hansa Yellow Light. I've tried it so many times on my palette and I never get along with it. You would think I would learn. Again, so I made a mistake that I kind of often make. If I'm going for a cool green, I don't want to add the burnt sienna because the burnt sienna is warm, but I do want a little bit of red to make it look more realistic. So the alizarin crimson is nice for that because it's cool. It's a cool red. And so it's getting me a green, but it's still a bit... I'm going to try a bit of the neutral tint. I know I said I wasn't going to use it earlier, but That's another one of those things on my palette that I'm trying on. I don't have enough pigment in any of this, so I need to add some more. Actually, I want to take this. Just drop some of it in before I... that cool is a nice contrast to the warmth of this. So I have a damp brush and I'm just going to merge this a bit more. And I do want a little bit more shadow on some of these. As it's drying, it's really pale. So I'm going to take some ultramarine, dash of burnt sienna, and a bit of, it's a bit too dry, bit of yellow ochre. It's a bit too wet, so I need to add more of everything. And I think that's going to give me some nice base shadows. Too wet. I'll help this little tree pop a bit more. Okay, and then again, that will dry later, so I can just leave it. And then I think I'm going to take some of that cool color and drop it down here too. So is anybody drawing along or painting along today, I wonder? I see some people watching, and I know some people are silent today. Dana's still watching. Okay, again, a bit more dark here. I mean, this is a really pretty dark value. And it helps give you that idea of the form. And some of these shadows in here, I'm going to take the same color around some of these. want to do some more to the red. I mean, that's had time to dry now. And I think, actually, I'm going to go in with a teeny tiny brush. If I can find one nearby. And I just want to add the little red of the apple. Right in there. Actually, there's some yellow on there too that I would like to get in first. So we'll start with a bit of yellow. So tiny. We could do that same yellow actually for this block of cheese. And then drop in this red. And I also want to use some of that on the legs, especially the front too. Okay, so I've got my brushes damp. Rainbow Kitten Coloring, sister, I just subbed. Welcome, nice to see you. How often do I stream? I've been streaming every Sunday, this same time, so 3 o'clock British time, which is, you know, depending on where you live, it's gonna be. And then sometimes I'll do a surprise stream that's just sort of unplanned. Dea says, I feel that when I watch artist painting, I can always learn something from it. Yeah, I think I feel the same way. I like to sometimes watch other people's live streams just for company while I'm doing art, even if I'm doing my own thing. All right, I don't want that brush. Okay, so I have my burnt sienna, my dash of cad red, and then a little more burnt sienna, and then some of my too much, but that's okay because do I want to use that somewhere? Yes, I think I want to use just a few of these areas. These inky blacks. Okay, so if we take some of that over here and repeat the same process, burnt sienna, cad red, a little more cad red, dash of that, there we go. All right, so that is going to give me the color that I'm looking for, kind of this rich, there are these touches of inkiness, or not inkiness, richness. All right, so I have to, this is the problem of a live stream. This is a little bit in the way, so I'm just gonna move that for now. There's a red strip right there that I want to get in. And I want to drop them in to mimic the wood better. And then we'll go in with those again. Yeah, the thing about watercoloring is it's all about the layering. Sometimes people look at my tiny paintings and I'll be like, oh, that looks like it took, you know, an hour. But they're not understanding that there's a lot of layering behind the scenes. I mean, if you paint wet on wet and you're really skilled at it, which I'm not yet, you can kind of predict the magic a bit more. But that is really hard to do in the tiny paintings. and easier to do in a larger painting. All right, now I think I'm going to leave this a bit because then I'm going to come back and dabble at the door a little bit more. And then the doorknob is going to be less. There's some stuff happening in this window where I see some of that color. And where else do I see it? I see, you know, some is here. Some is here. And then I think these bricks need a bit more attention. Dea says, other than learning, it's nice to talk with other artists. Sometimes I can be lonely as an artist. From my experience, I only work alone in my studio. Yeah, it can be lonely. Social media makes everything look fast when in real life art takes time. Yeah, absolutely. And I find it's funny with these live streams because they're so long. But it, you know, it takes layers to get the effect you want, especially with watercolor. You know, so I'm adding some more of this green in these areas because this is actually, there are some highlights, but it's quite a dark section of the painting. I think what I'd like to do is a bit of glazing in where the grouting is, or whatever, what do you call it with bricks? I don't know. So I think I'm going to take just a little bit of that color with a little bit of this yellow. Keep it wet. And that's going to give me, yeah, like a pale color. And then go in, because I don't see white grout. I just see, or what's it called? It's not called grout with brick. It's mortar. The mortar is not really white. So that already is looking more natural. And if I take some of this, just want to add a bit more texture on these pieces. And that color actually, I'm seeing kind of in here too, through the window. All right, I think we need some more greens. This table, actually, on the edge, needs a bit of darkening. And there's a cup here which I have neglected to paint, which I shall do soon. I think I kind of want to leave this area alone because I'd like to remove the masking fluid, but I do need some darks down here before I get too much further. Let me stand up and take a look. Knights J says, oh gosh, there's a few here. Especially TikTok arts, the magic editing, hence that's why everyone is attracted to Procreate. Yeah, Procreate. I Procreate is a mystery to me. I'm not, yeah. But yes, TikTok is a lot of time to edit those videos. Your hyperrealism takes 4 hours at least. Yeah, it would, at least. And Dea says, yeah, true, with magic editing, everything looks fast. It does. It's not. Yeah, I've been taking my art tips videos from TikTok that I've made over the last year and a half, and I've been slowly posting those on YouTube because the playlist system is just easier. I think it's more user-friendly. Things get lost on TikTok and people will ask for videos that I've, made, and it's just too hard to find stuff. And here I can put things on playlists at least. Okay. I think we're getting close. What do you think? This needs some blending. And it needs some anchoring along the edge. Not that yellow. I mean, I think Hansa Yellow Light is actually the same. It's a very similar pigment to some of the other paints, but and I think in oil painting that it has titanium white in it. I think. I could be wrong. Maybe I'm thinking of Naples yellow. And I think that's why I've not really explored it too much. All right, I'm having a sip of my tea. I just dropped my brush. So I'm standing up just to take a look, get a different perspective. The door, I want it to be a bit brighter still. And scrub it a bit because it's a lot of texture in that door. And I think, is it time to remove the masking fluid? Let's do it. Now I have to be really careful because the paper still is a bit damp. In a perfect world, I'd wait. I just would wait, but, and I'm being very gentle as I remove it, and that light color that I had put down initially is there. Okay. So somebody was asking, yeah, bring that door out. Christina, bring that door out. Yes, I will. It looks good. Thanks, Daya. Yeah, the door is actually a similar color to the masking to the masking fluid. All right. Now this is the stage of the painting that's kind of just boring, I think. Like it's not there yet. It needs, you know, more lights and more darks. So let's look at bringing out some of these yellowy greens that we see. I normally would use both palettes more, but it's when I work small, I think I got used to mixing small with the tiny palette too. But yeah, you can see that is, I'm happy with the way that is blending together more. And even this, it's getting there. It's very interesting because when you do the live stream, I'm looking at the screen on my computer where I'm looking at the comments, and I'm able to get like a different vantage point of the painting in a good way. Like it helps. It's almost like, you know, when you step away from your work and then you get, you know, you come back and you get a different perspective. There's some darks in here. And mix some yellows. So we've got this Hansa yellow. I might as well just keep it there. So if we did that with just a touch, I want phthalo, but I don't. Let's try a touch of cobalt. That's pretty. That's good. What do you guys think? And I want to go in now and just drop that in. It has been raining like it's the end of times here in England today. I managed to walk with the dog. I mean, we did get wet, but it was sort of like in between squalls. We're near the coast, so. All right, I'm dropping this in more so that it's a bit wetter, but it also I think will be a bit more pigmented, a bit more powerful. So, Prussian cobalt, Hansa yellow light, more Hansa yellow light. Yeah, I hear the rain outside the window. I don't think you can hear it. I hear the wind. I like that. Where do I want that cool green? Oftentimes if I'm going for a green and I'm not yet there, but I get a pretty green, I look to see where that green needs to be represented in the composition and I'll lay it down. It's also raining in the Netherlands. Dea, you're in the Netherlands. Yeah. Well, we're neighbors, aren't we? Is it a terrible rain or is it just like a not so bad one? It's been like, you know, raining sideways here all day. I need to, when this is dry, I need to come around this with some darks like that because I want this one to pop. I'd like this one to pop more as well. So, but I don't want to do it now or I'll wreck it. Let's go and let's brighten up that door a bit again. Dash of cerulean. Do we like that? I think we do. Okay. I'm stepping back, taking a look, seeing what I need. And this area needs a bit more definition. What do you guys think? Dea says, a whole day of rain, and also there's a chance this year that you'll have a white Christmas. Wow. Well, that's kind of exciting as long as it goes away after Christmas, right? Yeah, I don't know what our forecast is here. All right, I want to take Prussian. This is a mix I do a lot with a tiny painting because the Prussian blue is very similar to the phthalo in the Hansa Yellow Light. It gives me a nice, cool blue. Or not blue, sorry, green, but it's really vibrant again. So I want to get some more cool darks. I feel like this area still needs to be a bit darker. And I also think I can drop in some cool darks in this corner. So I'm going to use a bit of alizarin to make it more natural looking. It's getting there. It's not quite dark enough. I used to have Viridian on here, and Viridian and alizarin give me a really beautiful black. But like I said, I'm trying different colors. And yeah, I can show you how that works actually. I have all my palettes here. So here was my old, sort of my old palette. But you can see I've taken some colors out, but like my Viridian there and my alizarin, like I'll just show you. If I take Viridian, which is transparent, so you have to, I think I took it off my palette because this works better, I think, in oils. You need a lot of pigment. But if I take that, my water's getting murky, and I take some alizarin, I'm gonna get a really nice, cool black or gray in watercolor. It'll turn black. So I'm making a bit too red, but if I add more green, and then that color, let's find a swatch that hasn't been used too much. You can see it gives me like a charcoaly gray black color, which is really nice. I don't see too much of that around here though to use, maybe a little bit in here. I mean, I mixed it, so I might as well use a bit. And in general, I try to not use too many colors in a single painting because I think the color harmony gets a bit compromised when you do that. So, but I don't want to waste. Okay, Dea says, it's dinner time for you. You'll be back to watch the rest of the video later. Thank you so much for making this live video. You're welcome, Dea. Thanks for sticking around. Hope you got all your laundry done, and I hope you learned a thing or two and enjoy your dinner. right, so I think I was angling for a cool green, wasn't I? Back when I got one on that little jaunt. So we need some of that, some Hansa, some alizarin. Dash of water. And I think that is pretty good. So it's like that. So I can see this color a bit in here. I can see it around this area. And around these leaves. It'll help make this lighter yellow pop a bit more. And then I see some of that actually down here. I see that I did not bleed this out, which I should have done a bit more. So we could just make some more of that mix. Burnt sienna, cad red, dash of ultramarine. Too much ultramarine, just add more of the reds. To just bleed it out a bit more. All right, how do we think the door looks? A little bit more, I think. Is it dry? Not enough. Okay, so there's this area here, which I actually will take my pen and I might just help define those a little bit more. And I want to make, I really want a black. So to do that, I'm going to take these two colors. I'm going to take this mix, this whole mix. I should be doing it in a bigger pan, but I'm going to put some Payne's Gray into it. I don't really use burnt umber. A lot of people do. I don't really like it that much, and I also don't find it as necessary because I've got burnt sienna. But if I need to get it a little bit darker, I can just take a bit of Payne's Gray instead for a cool. See, that's still a bit, I need more blue. It's too warm. It's still too warm. Like that is getting me there. I don't want to be, even though this is quite black here, I'm hesitant to get too black with it. So all of these areas around these plants that I masked out, I'm just going to come up against some of these edges to make them pop a bit more. Like this one especially. And I'm leaving some of the lights around there because I want it to twinkle a bit more. And I see some of this, just touches of this over here in the underhang. And in some of these areas. Now I'm going to stand up and take a look again. Yeah, this doesn't make a lot of sense yet. And that needs a bit more definition as well. I like that green. And we've got a bit of like a brown wooden cup there, I think. So we can't ignore him. And then this bowl around the cheese. Okay, we need a bit more brightness with the door. Let's, as an experiment, put a dash of Prussian in that and see what happens. That's kind of fun. It's not bright enough though. It's definitely more cobalt and cerulean. Yeah, that's good. Okay, so let's put in our last touches of that. And along this window. Yeah, in the live stream, I accidentally shaded this a bit more. I meant to leave it white so that that blue popped a bit more, but it's okay. And in this area, I think I'm about ready to call it a day. What do you all think? Let's remove the tape from that top part. I feel like the legs might be a bit too red, but they are red. I think maybe if I just put them in shade a little bit more on the bottom. will help anchor them more. And this one is much darker. And I might, when it's completely dry, actually, this is more in shadow. Right there. When it's completely dry, I might go in with my pen, with my fine liner, and just touch up a few areas where I want it to be a bit more defined. And this is a bit more in shadow, as is this, to be honest. And then we have this shadow around the door, which I said I was done, but I'm not. I don't know what brush to use. Don't mind me here, just rustling through my brushes. I think this little cheapy one will work. But I want to mix a pigmented color to kind of define some of those shadows. So I'm going to use some Payne's Gray, Burnt Sienna, and Ultramarine Blue. And it's a bit warmer, so a bit more of the Burnt Sienna. And I don't want it to be really wet. I want it to be like a lot of pigment, because I'm going to use it just to kind of outline some of these areas to really help define them more. So yeah, it's still a bit too wet. So more paint. Let's try that. That's pretty good. So if I'm going to move this out of the way a little bit just because and I'll probably have to turn things a bit, but there's a shadow over on this side. And again on the inside. And some more shading on the top. It's a bit too cool. I want some more warmth. It's definitely, it's wet here, so that's why I'm turning it. Definitely it's warm in this shadow. And then this whole area has a darker shadow from the frame. a darker shadow under this plank of wood. Definitely a dark shadow under here. And around this window. Just mixing up a bit more with the tiny brush. Some of this comes up into the door where it's had some wear and tear. And we've got this little handle. And this is all going to make it seem a bit more organic and realistic, all these shadows and the I don't have anything on the other side of here, unfortunately, because I think it is kind of supposed to be cropped here. I feel like I should add something there just to make it a bit more cohesive with the rest of the piece. So I'm just going to put in a bit of this green just to allude to the fact that there's some stuff happening over there. Get rid of the white. And these, those have been forgotten, haven't they? Let's see if there's, and there's definitely some more shadows under these vines onto this window. I can put the shadows in first. And then let's touch up some of those greens. Let's go for, I'm liking this Prussian mix, the Prussian Hansa yellow. Watch for a video soon of me talking about my brand new palette, because having worked with different colors for the tinies has definitely changed my preferences, my long-standing preferences for some of these cooler ones underneath. I think that's good for the day. think I'm gonna call it a go. What do y'all think? So thank you for being here. I've got some people who've been on and silent, I know, because I can see the numbers but not comments. So I hope you've been painting or enjoying yourself or having a good nap or whatever it is that brings you joy. And we will see you again next Sunday. And I'm not sure what I'll be painting, but it'll probably be another one of the postcards from the live drawing sessions in October. So if you have any preferences for that, you can let me know. You can send me a DM on Instagram, or you can just drop a comment here um, once this goes to the recorded version, and I'll take a look and see. But I thought it would be nice, since some people did draw along, and you'd already have those for the lives. You'd have the drawing already, so maybe you want to paint along with me. So have a beautiful rest of your Sunday, and we will talk to you soon. Bye.